Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's me, Princess Lily M, coming through with the graduation story. My graduation story, what happened, background, and fail and discontinue. Now this video I'm going to be talking about my failing my exams and just how that was for me in the university. Now I know I already spoke to my university life, me starting off in university and how that was like for me, and me just sort of going through the motions of university. But I'll just like to start the story from my university life because I feel like I explored or really talked through my secondary and primary school life. So I need to do justice to this one because this is the core of my message and of my videos, right? So my first year started, and like I said, I was a slow learner with slow processing speed, right? But to me, I didn't really understand what this meant for me as a learner. As I had already mentioned, I was hanging around really smart people. My friends are really smart people, graduated top of their class. So I think I took that as an illusion to me being smart, because I was rolling with these really smart people and I was getting really average marks. I was getting your 50s, your 60s across all my subjects, while people were cruising with 80s and 90s, and I felt like, you know what, I just need to put in a little bit more effort. But then here's the thing, I wasn't putting in a little bit more effort. I was just putting in the same effort that I can say they were putting in, because whereas for me, I had to put in extra effort because of my conditions, So because of that, I was a party girl. I was a nightlife kind of girl, I won't lie. I did mention that I got saved in 2008, but then that took a back seat. I started knowing the essence of freedom, and I really utilized this. Remember that I grew up from a very strict household with strict parents. So this is where I was coming from. I was now free. I was living in school and I was meeting all these amazing people, and we were just exploring who we are in that regard, in terms of nightlife, partying, clubbing, excessive drinking. And I remember there was this one particular week, first semester, where that particular week, when I was done with my classes, every single day for that week, we had like a group of guy friends. They would pass by our school, pick us up, we would go drinking, be back to school at 1 a.m., don't get enough sleep, and be rushing off to class the next morning with a massive hangover. Now remember, I was hanging around with people who were really smart, who were really grasping concepts as they were being taught. Whereas for me, years later, I got to realize that I needed to listen in class as well as study, but I wasn't doing that. So first year came, we wrote our exams, and I was doing 6 courses. I passed 4 of those and failed 2 of those. I concealed this. I didn't tell anybody about the fact that I failed 2 courses, and I moved on to the second semester. Second semester, I was even in a deeper hole and a mess. This was terrible. I wasn't putting in effort in my studies at all. It was It was really minimum effort. And this time around, come exams, I passed 3 and failed 3, right? And then I remember, I think I got called into the dean's office. I don't quite remember if it was that year or the following year. And I was given an academic warning. Proceed with academic warning. You would think that this would sort of caution me to be serious, but this was now taking me back to the times when I was in standard 2 and I was that little girl and I failed again. I think I carried that trauma and that shame, that little girl who was doing Form 3 and she failed her Form 3. So with that, I was now going into my second year so fearful, so full of shame, so full of self-doubt. I remember there was this particular course. We had like tutorials for this course, and I remember, because I had already lost my self-esteem and my self-confidence, I remember my particular tutorial group kept getting cancelled, and I was so timid that I didn't quite go ahead and push and ask where they were meeting. And then later I found out that tests were written at tutorials, and I didn't know my tutorial. I didn't know which tutorial class I was taking, so I failed. I didn't take that first test, and then I wrote a second test, and by then I had already given up, and it was just a mess. This was second year. And by the end of second year, I proceeded still. This was still, I think I still failed 3, passed with 3, but somehow I made it. I was soldiering through. I remember this other girl got an FD, fail and discontinue. And I was comforting her through it because I felt that I could relate, because in essence what I was feeling was, I too am a failure, so I understand. I went on to my second semester, and this time I had really given up on myself. This is the time that I met my husband, and we started dating, and I was just too much in my head at that time because of all these failures and all these retakes that I'm accumulating, that at the end of that semester I actually flunked all my courses, and that was a fail and discontinue. Okay, I didn't flunk all my courses, I'm exaggerating. I think I failed 4 and I passed 2 because I kept on taking 666, And I remember I really wasn't coping. This was second year, second semester, right? Yeah, second year, second semester. So which meant that I was forfeiting my third year, first semester. And then I would be coming back the following year for second year, second semester. And when I tell you, that was a terrible time. First of all, during this time of my failure, I remember going to school, trying to plead my case, trying to ask them to allow me to proceed, but unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to proceed. I was just told, you know what, you failed, go back home. And then I started going to class with my classmates that semester, but I wasn't registered, I wasn't even enrolled. I even wrote exams that time. This is third year, right? I even wrote exams, but I wasn't enrolled, like I'm saying. I'm wondering now what the lecturers were thinking each time they saw me in class or saw my scripts, because I think only one lecturer called me and said, "You're not registered to my course." Anyway, that was a very traumatic, shameful time. That was the time that I really withdrew from my friends. I was living back at home now because obviously I wasn't given accommodation because I had failed, And now I was living at home, and imagine the transport money for me to be going to school, and just living that pretense life. And it was really painful. I think it was during this time that a friend of mine told me that she's going to the States on transfer, on exchange program, and I was so happy for her. But then at the same time, I couldn't be happy for her. I couldn't bring myself to be happy because now when I look back at it, I was really depressed at the time. And then this time I told my partner that I had failed, and this was December, that I had failed and I'm not going back to school the following semester. Remember that everybody was thinking that I was doing third year. Meanwhile, I had long back failed, in second year. So I told him that I had failed, and I was just in a dark space, in a dark time in my life, and then I went to visit my sister where she was working, and I remember being there, and then they asked me if the results were out, and I remember a friend of mine told me how she broke it to her parents that she had FD'd. She sent them a message that I've FD'd and switched off her phones, and she disappeared for like a week. But then I couldn't disappear. Remember, my parents were very strict. So I knew that nobody would be worried about me in that sense. Everybody would be gunning for me to come and explain this failure. So anyway, I sent my mom a message, and I sent her my results, and then I sent my sister who was at work. And I remember I just cried the whole day. I cried. They thought these were my third year results, and I remember my mom kept on saying, "Oh, Nkosi Yami, third year, you're supposed to be finishing. Oh, Jesus." Anyway, fast forward, then you stay away. If you have FD'd, you stay away for an entire semester, and then you go back the following semester. So the following semester when I went back, this time, at the time, your sponsor could pick you up. They could pay for you, unlike now where you have to sponsor yourself a semester, and then that's when they can re-sponsor you. So I was back, I got my scholarship back, and I was back at school, but it was still so traumatic for me. Remember, I had gone a whole semester pretending that I'm in school. Now I'm back at school and I'm registered for second year courses. This doesn't make sense. You're supposed to be registering for third year courses. I remember there was this other course that my friends or my classmates, we were in this class for my second year course, and they were using the same room for their third year course. So when we would finish this class, it would be time for them to be coming in. And I remember I always had to use the other door because they would be, by the front door waiting to come into the class, and I would use the other door, and I would just wait by the chairs over there until they all came into class. That's when I would proceed, and this would make me late to my next class. I remember meeting a classmate of mine, and he asked me, "Dude, what are you doing in a second year class?" And I was like, "Oh, I made a second year friend, and I was just cupping her to her class." And then she was like, "Come attend class. I mean, what's your case?" So I started attending this class with them, meaning that I'm forfeiting this next class that I was supposed to go to, So it was a cycle. And then it was also another cycle of dodging my friends, I know people tend to say when days are dark, friends are few. But for me, I can say I really withdrew. I was in myself. I started speaking out and telling people that, oh, I had FD'd, but it was just sort of a defense mechanism because I knew that they were probably wondering and it was doing the round. So I thought I'm being defensive and just explaining things before anybody could ask me anything, So I was just being this dodgy person, and oh my goodness, that year it was a whole mess. It was a mess, right? Failed again. And this time it was a fail and exclude. Now with a fail and exclude, you have to stay away for 2 full years. This is 4 semesters. Remember the last time that you were staying away for 1 semester? This time I was staying away for 4 semesters. With a fail and discontinue, you stay away from 1 semester. Hence why I just stayed that semester that I was pretending to be in school, and then I went back, right? But then this time I was staying away for 4 semesters, and yeah, that semester I was just home. The first semester of me being on my first fail and exclude. Oh, I wasn't just home. I still pretended to go to school again. Oh my goodness. What is wrong with me? And then the following year came, and I remember breaking it off with my partner because everything was so unbearable. I felt so unworthy of love. I remember because I was so alone. Don't get me wrong, there were people who were there with me. I've mentioned how Equity has stayed with me throughout all these seasons, right? And there were other friends, of course. There was Bipelo, who was also there with me, who understood my situation, right? And then this next semester I went into volunteering. This was my second, so I came clean again in December, and I told my family what had happened, that I had failed, and this time I had to stay away for 4 semesters, right? And then my family tried to get me to change courses entirely. So I think I have guessed. Okay, I'm gonna have to cut the story short and continue it again after my guests have left. Okay, where was I? Where was I again? Yeah, fail and exclude, right? So yeah, I was staying away for 4 semesters, and I broke it off with my partner because I wasn't feeling worthy of love. It was just basically a dark time in my life. I just felt like I'm a failure and I just can't focus on him or anything at the time. And mind you, in 2012, this was before my FD, I rededicated my life back to Christ. So I was basically on the straight and narrow now. And breaking it off with my partner was me thinking, I'm being sober-minded. I just don't need to be in a relationship at this moment. It was nothing of he cheated, I cheated. It was just solely my decision, and thinking, what? I just need to focus on healing and being better for myself, right? So I stayed away then. During that time, I started volunteering for Face the Nation, which is an abstinence-based, I don't want to say club. It's a faith-based program, basically, and the main message is abstinence. So abstinence. I was an abstinent young lady, so I thought, perfect opportunity. So we went into a school of discipleship, and then after that, you'll be sent out into schools to to start volunteering, right? So I did that for 2 years. And it was a fantastic time. I made beautiful, meaningful relationships. During that time, I volunteered in Lidumang, Mueding, Sepa, Pizzo. These are secondary schools. And I really had a beautiful time. Like I'm saying, I was pouring myself out into this ministry. I was helping children. I was discipling the youth, which I believe I'm called for. And then I think I have my timelines messed up, but in any case, it's okay. I wanted to speak to that as well, having my timelines mixed up. There was a time up until recently that I had no memory of that year that I was on FE. I had no recollection at all whatsoever of what transpired during that year. Obviously, you would know that you were there, you were living, you were surviving. This was the time that I was serving in church. This was the time that I was really full on, hands on in church and in ministry, But I was depressed at the same time, Have you ever experienced that, whereby you are in your most depressed, but you are being this person who's outgoing, who's the friendliest, who's just giving off themselves? I remember that I said there were 2 semesters, well, different times, not 2 consecutive semesters, that I was pretending to be in school. I remember during this time it was so lonely. I was dodging my friends all the time. There was a time that I don't even know where this place is in school right now. If you would ask me to take you to this place in UB, I have no recollection of it. But for some reason, there were desks there, arranged desks behind some building, and I used to sit there and pretend to be studying, and then I would fall asleep. I would be sleeping there for hours. And the other place that I remember that I used to sleep at was, that 4 spots that I used to be there and sleeping. And this one spot was right in the middle of school. This will show you how depressed I was. It was right in the middle of school. I would be laying down and I would be sleeping. This other time, I saw my friend's little sister. I saw Bill's little sister. And she was passing over there. I could see her in the distance. In my head, I was thinking I'm calling out her name. I don't even know if the words were coming out, but I thought they were. But anyway, she just passed by. This is how depressed I was, But then, I went through that time and I was volunteering and I met some amazing people. I met Barati during this time, who was also going through an FD. And then towards the end, when I met my friend Lame, who I had met years before. This is how I knew of Face the Nation, because they had come to my school, my senior school, years before. And I met Lami at the time. She was my mentor, and we had an amazing time during the time that she volunteered at my school. So I found the Face the Nation club and I went to it. And then a couple of time later, maybe a year later, during my FD, I met Lame, and then we became friends. We really became so close, Lame and I. We just became so close during that time. Then she told me that she Yeah, oh yeah, then we became close during the time that I was volunteering for Face the Nation. During that time, we just became so close. I used to pray with her. I used to pray with her. And then she was working at my former place of employment, where she told me that, oh, this place would be really good for you. I'm getting married, yay. So I'll recommend you to my boss. She recommended me to her boss, and then that's how I started working, where I was working for the next 7 years of my life. I started working at this place. And it was during this time that it was on and off. I was a bit depressed. I was not depressed. And then it was the following year after I had broken up with my partner. So we got back together during the following year. And I was in a better place. I was not better, but I was in a better place, in terms of acceptance of where I was, and just starting to really live, unlike the previous year 2014. I do not remember nothing. This was my during the first time that I got my FE at the end of 2014, right? So 2015 comes and I get this job, and I'm the girl. Then 2.5 years later, that is when I started thinking about going back to school. I had stayed away past my FE. Now, I wanted to tell this story as I remember it. So I didn't write much to refer back on. I just tried to put together a timeline of events because I wanted to tell this story as I remember it. This is why I keep on having these pauses. This time that I started working where I was working, my sister comes to my place of work, and she came with my father, and they were like, let's go to school, let's go and inquire. This was also a very traumatic and embarrassing time in my life. I know they were coming from a good place. They wanted to help me, but this is not how you go about it. You don't just ambush someone into taking them and, in your trying to help them. This is why even therapy, even going for rehab, it is always advised that the person who's struggling with addiction be the one to take themselves to rehab. Yeah, so I was taken to school, and this was the second time. Previously, my other sister, during my FD, had taken me to school with my mother. And then I had gone to the sponsorship place with my mother and my sister. I know they were coming from a good place, but I feel like parents sometimes neglect to see things from a point of view of the child. They were making me feel like I had wronged them, while in essence this was about me, and they were not trying to understand what sort of help I needed. During the time that I told them that I had FD'd the first time, I didn't need an ambush. I didn't need to be going back to the sponsor like that. I needed to be taken to counseling, first of all. This was a traumatic ordeal. People think that going through a fail and discontinue, you were playing. You were a very playful person. You need to be reprimanded. Meetings called. Elders. I remember this time, the first time that I FD'd, and there was a meeting at my sister's house, and I remember going there, and my heart was shattered. I was torn. It was so painful in my heart. And I didn't understand why my family was being so cruel. You understand why I'm saying that children need to go through counseling this time? Because first of all, you're going through your own self-hate. You're going through your own shame and disbelief. And there was a whole entire family meeting called for me, and I was there being reprimanded upon, being told how disappointed you are of me. I understand. I've told my niece, who I'm part of raising, that I'm disappointed in her. But the first instinct that I do is love her, so that she understands that you have done this mistake, but you are loved still. You have done this mistake, but it doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change who you are in our lives. This is what I could have appreciated, instead of feeling like you are the outcast of the family. You are an outcast. You have brought shame to us. Now it's a them issue, other than what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. And my feelings are very much valid. My feelings are very much solid. I understand. I want to say this. I don't want to invalidate how they felt. I understand truly that they were also hurt. They were very disappointed. I mean, imagine your child who's in the university, you wanting them to graduate on time, comes home and they have failed. I really truly understand. I disappointed them. I deserved all those things. But in the first instinct, I didn't need that. I needed love. This is why I felt like I'm unworthy of love. I broke it off with my partner, and I felt like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I wasn't suicidal, because I was so far gone that I would have gone through with the suicide, so far gone in the depression. And this is the time, even though I was really depressed, this is the time that my relationship with Christ became really, really established. The foundation. When I was born again in 2008, I had laid a slab of the foundation. But this time, I really built on the foundation. I really cemented it before building the house. This was the time that I was laboring, I was soaring, and, building the foundation, and my relationship with Christ became solid as a rock from then. And then this second time, my other sister, who is also in an attempt to rescue or help me, takes me to school, and with my father, the security guard, when we got there, was like, this is a grown adult. She knows what she's supposed to do, and she knows. And still, I was getting this backlash. I was getting this whole, you have disappointed us. You have. It was a really painful, traumatic time. And it was in this time, during my FE, I believe, they got me, or they tried to get me to change courses. My sister paid for that. I started a whole new degree course at my very university, in a whole different faculty, in a whole different, it was a whole different course, right? They were like, since your newfound faith, you should study theology. So I went and did theology for a semester, and I obviously failed it. Theology wasn't something that I wanted to study. First of all, they were coming to me with solutions, but at that particular moment, I didn't need solutions. I needed comfort, because this was also a me. I hadn't yet discovered the half of why I had failed, right? Obviously, like I had said, it was more of my clubbing and drinking problems, but it was also an issue of, I'm a slow learner. I have slow processing speed, so I need to put in the effort, which I wasn't, which through counseling, it would have helped me to establish this, right? So anyway, I did that whole course and failed dismally, and went back to work. And yeah, the story continues. I want to end this video here by saying, be there for your children who are going through a failure. Your first instinct shouldn't be a place of you as a parent, as a friend, as a partner. It should be about them. Find out how you should be there for them. Find out how, before you come up with solutions, because sometimes coming up with solutions is going to be short-lived, because these solutions, this person is not even thinking straight. Okay. I got attacked in 2017. I got mugged at, I almost said gunpoint, at knife point. I was stabbed on my thighs. I was with my niece, who was so traumatized as well. And this was the year that I was deciding to go back to school. It was actually the holiday before I went back to school, and I got stabbed. And then when I have a friend who offered to pay for counseling for me, I started going to government counseling, because this was a really traumatic experience for me, being stabbed and my belongings being taken. So I started government counseling. Government hospitals are an entire joke. Okay, I booked for an appointment, and my appointment was scheduled for a month later. How do you schedule people appointments for a month later? This is issues of urgency, So I went for 2 sessions, which were really, they didn't make sense, because first of all, they were 2 months apart. So my friend was like, you know what, let me pay for your counseling. And the counseling that he referred me to was in the university, in UB. And coincidentally, I was starting back at school that semester, and I started going for counseling there, and it was amazing. I don't know, therapy is beautiful. My counselor at the time, my therapist, I had a very terrible therapy experience with the UB counseling department, but I also get to appreciate what it has done for me. She asked me, what are you doing? I told her that I'm a student of the university, and she was like, oh, actually, your friend doesn't have to pay because you're a student of the university. Just produce your student ID. I did that, and, through therapy, she was asking me what I'm doing. I told her that I'm back to school, and we got to explore issues of my fail and discontinue. We got to explore issues of me being back to school, and she really, really helped me understand myself. She really helped me understand my study patterns, what I needed to do. It was helpful in that regard, so kudos to you. And I was back at school. I had registered for only 3 courses, and my friend again was sponsoring me. She asked that I should make no mention of this, so I won't make no mention of this. But to the friend who sponsored me when I went back to university, I love you, my friend, and I appreciate you for this. This was you're believing in me. And this friend of mine came from a point of, I love you, my friend. She was there for me. She kept on asking me if I'm ready to go to school. She prayed with me. Not to compare, but remember I said that my sister paid for me to do that, to study theology and religious studies, and I failed. And then again, I received backlash. She was on again about how you wasted my money, you wasted my time. I'm sorry, Sissy. I really, really do apologize from the bottom of my heart. But here we are now. I apologize for that. I apologize to my family for all the shame that I brought to them. Anyway, fast forward. So my friend is sponsoring me. and I started going for tutorials for this particular course that was giving me a headache, and then I failed this one course. And I also want to say thank you to Taone, who came through for me. I'm a person who really holds people in high regard and cherishes them, and I cherish people who help me in life, who love me and who help me. So to this friend who is sponsoring me, thank you so much. You did for me. It was the way she believed in me that I believe that I had to make it. She really believed in me. Thank you to Taone as well. Taone, I met, we were in class, we had gotten back our paper 1 test back, and I had failed. I had gotten a 3 out of 20, and she was like, girl, I can help you through this course. I think she had gotten a 20 out of 20 or something. I can help you through this course. And she dedicated her time and her life into helping me that entire semester. I passed that particular course from that 3 out of 20 to when Zauna started helping me, and I got like an 89% for that particular exam. So I had really passed, even though I failed this one particular course that I was doing tutorials for, but I was quite happy that, I passed these 2 other ones. So I proceeded to the next semester, and I did this particular one course. I was now back to my 6 courses because my sponsor was now re-sponsoring me back. Remember, you had to, now the rules are, if you FD or FE, you sponsor yourself a semester, and then the government will re-sponsor you after you sponsored yourself a semester. So I did that, and now I was back again on my scholarship, and I was now back to doing 6 courses, and my husband started tutoring me. When I tell you, my partner was amazing. Remember, I was coming from a place of trauma. So I was full of self-doubt. In this particular course, again, I had failed test 1. I think I had gotten boom at 12%, something like that. But then he started tutoring me, and I also passed this exam. I got 68% for the final exam, which shows that his taking over from my tutor and him tutoring me, he really loved me. He was so patient with me. He was really patient with me. He tutored me through. We studied together even for my other courses. He doesn't know a single thing about my course, but he used to study in advance just so that he could help me. And I really appreciate you for this, my hubby. You pushed me, and ultimately I graduated, and I'm so grateful for you for this. Thank you so much, my hubby. I love you. Thank you to all the friends who were there with me. I really cherish you. Thank you to my family who were also supportive in their own not understanding way, but you supported me through. So thank you very much. And this is basically my fail and discontinue story. And the next video, do tune in at the story of redemption and how God came through for me in a magnificent, beautiful way. Thanks for tuning in to my graduation story.